be the next one.
Recording.
Call the meeting to order. Stand for the roll call.
We have everyone present, 9 present, 0 absent.
All right. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I either need additions or deletions or a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We got a motion and a second. Go ahead and vote.
That motion passes 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. Consent items, Judy?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, on tonight's consent agenda, we have for council's approval the city council minutes of September 18th, city council special meeting minutes of September 25th, planning commission minutes of September 20th, Willmar Municipal Utilities Commission minutes of September 25th, the accounts payable report from September 14th through September 27th, authorize staff, a resolution to authorize staff to release agricultural land bid packet, Community Center Task Force, a resolution to accept project number 2201D and authorize final payment. And for council's information, the Central Community Transit Operation Board minutes of June 27th.
I would also, I've added to your packet a breakdown of what we did when we went to DC. I went with Roger Imdick and Mel Odens, and we were able to meet face-to-face with a number of Congress members, and we asked them to support our local efforts to complete the already graded 2.5 miles. That's what I was there for more than anything. The 2.5 miles of 4-lane 23 on the southwest side of town. The need for money for federal rail crossing elimination is, the total project is $9,649,126. But I really enjoyed this. It was fun to meet with each one. I've got a list there who we met with, and that's just for information. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer them. Audrey.
Just wondering if you would like this document added on to the consent agenda, since you're bringing it up at that time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right.
Audrey has a question.
Audrey?
Does that include adding this?
Yes, my motion did.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering if we could talk about item G.
Okay.
I would move to pull that one for right now.
Okay. So we'll pull the community center task force, otherwise everything else, we've got a motion and a second. Go ahead and vote.
I'm waiting on Councilmember Nelson, Fagerly, and Butterfield. Do you want to do voice votes?
Yes.
Okay, Butterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
That motion passes, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, Audrey?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the community center task force. I'm just confused with why right now. I thought we had been asked to wait with the bonding request that was in. I thought that we had been asked to wait on the community center until we knew more about that.
Well, I think they can be ahead of that, be looking at options.
But the task force is strictly looking for a location, not just options for the community center itself where it's at?
My thought was that they were going to look at options
For locations,
for location, yes.
not with what would happen if they stayed right there.
Well, I think that's one of the options.
Okay, that, when I was reading how it was documented, it was referencing locations.
I think that is one of the options that should be included in their research.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I just am confused
you're
with why
looking
now. What?
Did I give you what you're looking for?
I think so, but I just wondering if, I mean, we talked about this once before with where we were at. We, as a council, were told that we were waiting for the funding part of it, so that's why I'm just curious if we're getting hopes up when we aren't ready to do that yet, so.
Well, I think we need to know what our need would be,
For the bonding.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I will make a motion to accept item G.
All right,
Second.
got a motion and a second. Any questions? Otherwise, go ahead and vote.
Let's go back out again.
Waiting on Councilmember Schultes, Fagerly, and Butterfield. Do you guys want to do voice votes?
I just voted on something. It just popped up. Last one didn't pop up. Maybe that was the last one, but I'll vote yes.
Okay. Fagerly,
Yes.
Schultes.
Yes.
That motion passes, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, we're up to the open forum. Judy, do we have anybody?
We do have one individual that would like to address the mayor and council, and his name is Ben Fisher.
All right. Ben, welcome. get
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Saw you just a little while ago, didn't I?
Yep. Well, I listened to you, you should say that. Anyway, in front of you have a piece of paper that I brought to Justice Walker, and that the little highlighted spot down below is July, says July 3rd. I went to them, him and Jason Zwagerman in June, and asked them about putting something like this in. They said, there's no restrictions on the containers. So I said, okay. So I went back to my investor, and he said, well, he wants something in writing. I said, so I went back to him, and he said, well, I want to put 92 of them. And he said, well, you can't do that. I said, what's the difference between you can and then you can't? So he said, draw this up. So I drew this up, and I had it drawn up on July 3rd, and I talked to him, and he said he was going to bring this in front of you guys or whoever for 2 different times I've been out here, and he said he was going to bring it up to both of you. Well, last time he brought something up, but it wasn't nothing to do with my container storage. But I own this piece of property right here, and I have an investor who wants to put containers on there, and I want to start a business, a small storage facility by using containers. And I just want to know why it takes so long to get something through anywhere. I mean, it's been since July 3rd, and I still don't have an answer. And I'm just brought it in front of you so that it could go somewhere. I found out today, I went and talked to Kyle, because Leslie's gone, and he said that supposedly it got brought in front of the planning commission, and I said, well, he never told me, because I would have liked to showed up there, because the way he explained it to you guys when I was here last week was nothing like what I wanted. So I don't know how he explained it to the planning commission, so I don't know what the whole deal is, but I'd like somebody to look at this, and I put my name and phone number up there on the top, so if anyone wants to call me and with any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but I'd like to get something going so I could start this business.
Do you know anything more, Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I spoke with Mr. Fisher this afternoon. This is, what Mr. Fisher is referring to as the last council meeting. Council was introduced to the idea of creating an ordinance that would be more broad overview rather than this specific project. Mr. Fisher is correct. We do not have an ordinance that talks about how we want to handle shipping containers within the city. So I think that was council's direction to us as staff at the last meeting, was to work on an ordinance to bring back to you on how we want to handle shipping containers.
Okay.
So that is where we're at currently.
And last week, you guys, or when the last meeting, you guys talked about, you don't want it residential. Well, this is, my property here is in the business district, right? That's Benson Avenue and 6th Street.
Yeah.
Right down there in the corner, so. That's all I wanted. I just want to get it in front of you, so the other question is, I just want to know why it takes so long to get a business started. I mean, I've been trying this since July, and I don't know what the holdup is. So, all right,
All right.
Thank you.
Ben.
Is it east or west? East. Okay. Yep. It's right next to residential.
Okay, we have a public hearing for unpaid weed grass mowing. Judy,
Do you want to open the public?
I'll open the hearing.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you tonight is a hearing to be held for the unpaid weed grass mowing removal charges. And in your packet includes the properties that are in violation of not paying these charges. Staff is recommending you adopt the resolution certifying the unpaid weed grass mowing removal charges to the county auditor for collection in 2024.
Okay. I'll open the hearing up for public comment. Give us your name.
My name is Brian Hitting. I live at 2300 21st Avenue Southwest. I guess I just am here to apologize to my neighbors, I guess, for not mowing my lawn enough. This is the first I've heard about an assessment for mowing my lawn, I guess. So I'm just here to understand it a little bit better.
Well, it's, if you don't mow it and it gets over a certain height and there's complaints, the city will come out and mow it, and then you're assessed for the mowing.
So the city came out and actually mowed my lawn.
Yes.
Okay, so I am charged $258 to pay for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Is
have,
that my understanding of this? Didn't know my lawn was ever mowed by the city.
Mr.
Can we ask
Mayor,
questions during this?
if I may, bills are sent out from our finance office. Our Public Works Department will send a bill up there. There's a couple bills, I believe, that are sent out. And it's like, if over 7 inches, a complaint or staff sends out a letter, you have 7 days from the day of the letter to mow it. If it's not done, then the city comes in. And we bill for the truck, trailer, mower, staff time, and an admin fee. And within 90 days, if it's not paid, it gets sent to the attorney. And we have not heard anything back. These are for mowing charges that were not paid by July 31st. So Did you not receive your letter or your bills?
I have a notice here of, a notice of hearing and a cost to be assessed, $258. So does that essentially mean that I have to pay that because the city came out and mowed?
Yes, we do show that. Let's see, wait a minute. Did you just recently purchase this property?
Yes.
Are you one of those? Okay. The letters had gone out to the prior owner before you.
Okay.
So when they're not, and these are charges that are against the property, not the individual. So unfortunately, you inherited this.
Wonderful.
You do have the option to pay it if you want to pay it up so it does not go on your tax statements.
Yeah.
If you could come in yet this week before we certify it to the county auditor, that would be appreciated.
Okay, so I just have to come back.
Just come to the city office building and write your check out to the city of Willmar.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll,
Can I just say one thing about that? I had a similar situation with my daughter before she took ownership of her place. The grass didn't get cut along the roadway, between the sidewalk and the roadway. She did not even own the property yet. And she got fined $110. And when we tried to find out why, when I went and talked to the city, and it had already flipped from the other owner to her, and she didn't even know it. So I'm just saying we should be careful. There's new ownership like this. I'm not saying that happened here, but I'm saying we should be very careful of new ownership. And the post office even had her address, it didn't have her address yet, so she wasn't even listed there. But she got tagged and she wasn't even living there. So just saying, we just kind of need to watch that.
These are things that a closing company should be contacting our office for.
Yep.
all right, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up to the council.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Tom?
Yeah, well, this spring, Gary Manzer said that one of the reasons why it's so high was we used to hire this out, but all the local lawn mowing companies didn't want to do it because all the chains, ropes, garbage that were in the grass, so we have to pre-walk it before we mow it. So there's a little bit more expense there. So they have to pre-walk these lots before they mow it, so they're not wrapping things up in their lawnmower and wrecking their blades and their lawnmowers with that. So that's what Gary brought up when we moved to approve this ordinance.
Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I know we made some changes to that so that there wasn't so many delays with this when there is a problem, but how many notifications do we send out before we mow the lawn?
That would be a question for finance. Let's see if I can have some paperwork. I don't know, do you, Finance Director or Public Works Director, do you know the answer to that question?
Well, we would be unaware of it until after the mowing is completed. We wouldn't send the bill until after the work is performed.
It looks like I've only got one copy of one invoice attached to Mr. Hitting's property.
Yeah, so when we get a complaint or a call or whatever about the property, we go and look at it. If we deem that it's over 7 inches, then we send out a letter, and they have the 7 days, like Judy said, to get that done. After 7 days, we go back and look again. If it's mowed, it goes to the side. If it's not, that's when we go and mow it. So,
Do those letters get attached to the file so that,
Yeah.
yeah.
motion and a second on this, right?
We do.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, go ahead and vote.
Just waiting on Councilmember Schultes and Osmus. You want to do voice votes? Schultes?
Aye.
Osmus?
Aye.
That motion carries 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Right? The next one is a special assessment hearing. I'll open the hearing. Special assessment hearing for unpaid snow or ice removal. Judy?
Again, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, before you are a couple of properties that did not pay their snow or ice removal charges, and staff is recommending you adopt the resolution to certify the amount of unpaid snow or ice removal charges to the county auditor for collection in 2024.
All right. Open it to the public. Anybody here to speak? If not, I'll close the hearing, bring it up to the city council.
Move to approve. Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve by resolution. Tom?
Yeah, with this going on, last winter I received a number of complaints along 2nd Street Southeast with McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, New York Gyro, where they own the property on 2nd Street. They weren't shoveling it. I then reported to Leslie to get it taken care of. Still wasn't done. It was not just them, then all the neighbors, after the big buildup weren't doing it. I received pictures coming in the mail from all the kids walking right down the center of 2nd Street after school, before school, and they were taking up the whole street because the sidewalk was not shoveled. So we need to put a notice out to everybody down 2nd Street Southeast that they need a shovel, including the business owners, and that will go along with Legacy Mall Shopping Center on 2nd Street Southwest. They don't shovel theirs on their corner lot either. So I think we should be sending that out and getting it fixed for those school kids not walking down 2nd Street Southeast from the middle school.
All right, anybody else? I need a motion on a resolution.
We got that.
You got it? All right. Go ahead and vote.
Just waiting on Councilmember Schultes. Do you want to do a voice vote?
My iPad is offline, so I'm not getting
Okay.
anything from this.
You,
Yeah, aye.
aye. Okay, that motion passes 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Next is a special assessment hearing for unpaid fire alarm system charges. I'll open the public hearing. Judy, you want to explain this?
Again, we're down to one property, actually. When we set the hearing, we had 2 properties, and one of them came in and paid in the last 2 weeks. So we just have one property left that has not paid their fire alarm system charge. And again, we're recommending approval so we can certify it to place on the taxes payable in 2024.
So moved. Second.
I got
Oh, open.
anybody here in the public wanting to speak to this? If not, I'll close the hearing and bring it up to the council.
Let me try that again.
Try it again.
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion? Go ahead and vote.
Waiting on Councilmember Schultes and Fagerly. Do you want to do voice votes?
Aye.
Aye for Fagerly. Aye for Schultes. 8 ayes, 0 nays.
All right. The next item is consider approval of a service contract with Hometown Fiber. Kyle, you want to explain this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. Tonight before you is a resolution authorizing the city to enter into a service contract with Hometown Fiber. The City of Willmar and Hometown Fiber have been working towards a successful open access fiber network for Willmar. Over the last year, city staff, the broadband committee began meeting and discussing the Hometown Fiber proposal. Now, the initial goals and aspirations of this original proposal have evolved into a much larger and forward-thinking plan to provide the entire city with access to an open access fiber network. Now, if we think back to maybe a little bit over a year ago when this earlier request was before you, the intent was to, how can we get fiber out to our industrial park? And that's what started this. And when we received our 3 proposals, with Hometown Fiber being one of them, we were opened up to the idea of, okay, well, maybe one or 2 proposals, yeah, we can get fiber out to your industrial park, no problem. But what about the rest of your city? What about the opportunities that could come out for other industry, other businesses, education, healthcare, and maybe prospective residents to move to Willmar because we have fiber? And that, like I said, that's evolved over the last year. Now, tonight's action is one of several steps and opportunities that the council will have to ask questions regarding this project. But tonight's focus, tonight's lane is the engineering portion of it. So engineering for this project is crucial. Surveying, locating, mapping our underground utilities will be vital to the success of the installation of fiber. Hometown, along with Bolton and Mink, will be able to provide schematic drawings, design development, construction drawings, including the fiber network design, and the draft project manual. Now, Hometown, who's here with us this evening, President Kyle Moorhead, and the broadband specialist, Marlena Pfeiffer, have been excellent partners to work with, and they've worked at the pace of the city throughout the entire project. Tonight, we've reached a point where work needs to begin. We need to take that next step. In order to begin construction in 2024, we need to start the engineering work for this project. So how do we pay for this, right? So for the engineering portion, the city intends to use funds from the Industrial Park Fund to pay for these services. And if this action is approved by the council, the subsequent action, the next agenda item, will be an approval of a resolution for the intent to reimburse ourselves with these funds with bond proceeds in 2024. And if you scroll down, maybe in your packet, you can see the budget, the fiscal issues for the payment, and the overall contract is $687,524. And again, going back to Hometown's commitment to the city and Hometown's commitment to this project, they've worked with us and how they want to phase this and break this cost out. So the initial portion, the initial first phase, if you will, is a 30% project deposit for $206,000, $206,257.20. That's what, to get this project going, that's what the requirement or what we would be asking from the council this evening. And then you can see as phases are met, as we get further along in the project, those other phases would be paid out. So city staff recommends that the council enter into a service agreement with Hometown Fiber for technical consulting services, technical architecture of the proposed public broadband infrastructure project. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I think I read somewhere in the next document that with the funding, there is a limit on what can be reimbursed. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Correct. So in the next document, we're estimating at this point $25 million would be the bond ask for 2024 to pay for this project.
The fees, though, that are listed on this still would be allowed to be reimbursed?
Correct.
As part of that?
Correct. We'd be able to reimburse ourselves for that portion of the project.
If we go ahead with this and for some reason have to delay or not this is our investment, I mean, we are investing money
Correct.
into this project at this point.
Yep, that's a great question. So yes, this initial 30% project deposit, I mean, that is what we're putting in. So we've talked with Hometown, and Kyle or Marlena, if you want to come up and talk too. What we've talked about, if worst case scenario, and this is not the intention, this is just worst case scenario because we need to be prepared for it. If we don't move forward with the project, if we don't move forward with bonding, yes, we would be in for that 206,000. However, we're not out everything because we retain, we would be able to keep that work that's done by Hometown, done by Bolton and Mink, and that's, again, the mapping and surveying of our utilities. But in the contract, if you read, there's options for us to, okay, we know that this isn't going to move forward, we can end the contract, and we would not be necessarily on the hook for the full amount. Did I relay that correctly?
Yeah, so
You want to
So-
introduce her?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Marlena Pfeiffer, if I'm saying that correct?
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
is a broadband specialist with Hometown Fiber. She has been
Okay.
our go-to this entire project, so.
I'm the main girl here. So what Hometown Fiber did with the engineering portion of this is we broke it into separate phases. Right, the city will be built in phases. We're not going to tear up the whole thing at once, obviously, and make a huge mess. So as we engineer it, we'll engineer it in those same phases. The contract has been set up so that the initial payment of 30%, or the 206,257, right, will be due. And then as the phases develop, the rest will be due. If the worst case scenario happens, we've built in protections for you so that those payments stop. Right, so if the project doesn't continue, neither do the payments. Does that make sense? Any other questions?
Well, I got a question in my mind. I don't know how to ask it.
Okay,
So if we get partially into this
Mhm.
and we pull out of it, this is a payment that we can't recover.
correct, is the short answer to that.
And we'll have a partial operational,
We'll complete the engineering for you. Right, I mean, the engineering is proprietary information. It's something that you're gonna need anyway. Right, no matter what you do with this project, with Hometown Fiber, if you, for some reason, decide not to continue with us, but you still want to continue with the project, or the Bolton and Mink portion of it, or however that may be, you still have to have this portion done. I
okay?
guess maybe I didn't know how to answer it.
No, I think I got what I was looking for. Audrey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Reese. I think, Kyle, you made the comment about when we started this, we wanted to make sure that we got broadband out to the industrial park.
Correct.
Can you just expand on, because some of those places have brought in their own, and so can you just expand on that concept a little bit?
Sure. So I have to think back here. So it was an initial request from the Planning and Development Director at the time to put out an RFP for broadband, and this was an attempt to get fiber drops essentially out to our industrial park. Right now, companies bring their own fiber out, but this would be a part of the open access fiber network. So you might have another line running out there that companies have the option to jump and be a part of and jump and beyond. If that answers your question.
I think so. I think as we expand, or new things that are out there are beyond where there is, and even the airport, am I correct, or?
Yes, this would
Not,
include the
or-
airport. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I don't know what the airport uses right now for,
Currently, we have another contract with another company to provide temporary fiber services to all of our city-owned facilities,
okay,
just city-owned facilities.
okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? So we have to move on the resolution.
I move to approve a service contract with Hometown Fiber.
Second. Here we go.
Councilmember Schuldes,
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
That motion carries 7 ayes, 1 nay. Councilmember Fagerly casts the nay vote.
Okay. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Next is the Hendricks subdivision. Kyle.
No,
Let's go 10B. Mr. Mayor.
What,
we
Judy?
need the resolution declaring costs to be reimbursed. The second component of this,
Oh, I thought we were doing that. Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the next action, the next agenda item here is asking the city council to consider a resolution for declaring costs to be reimbursed. Again, as we stated, this action does not commit the city to issuing bonds, but it's the foundation required to be able to use bond proceeds to reimburse those associated costs.
Move to approve.
Second.
Go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Schuldes,
Aye.
Councilmember Osk.
Aye.
That motion carries 8 ayes, 0 nays.
All right. Audrey.
If it would be okay, just a follow-up to, when will we hear about this again? How soon will we be getting information on
Yeah,
this?
we'd like to bring this back to you yet this fall, and maybe in a work session, maybe not next week, but November, December timeframe, early next year. I mean, we want to move quick. And
Thank you.
thorough.
All right, so the next item is the final plat on the Hendricks subdivision. Kyle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Planning Commission held at its last meeting on September 20th to review and approve the final plat for the Hendricks subdivision. City departments, the Willmar Police Department, Fire Department, Municipal Utilities, and Engineering have reviewed and provided comments on the preliminary and final plat. The public hearing was held with no comments from members of the public, and the agenda item was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission. If approved tonight, next steps for the applicant will be to submit the final, or the Mylars to the city for signature, and once those are signed, we'll turn them back to be recorded before closing on the property.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for the Hendricks subdivision.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Schuldes,
Aye.
Councilmember Butterfield.
Aye.
That motion carries 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Next item is the Dover Township Fire Agreement. And call on Judy.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, our next agenda item is to approve the Dover Township Fire Agreement for the year 2024. The information is before you in your packet, and it's staff's recommendation to approve.
So move. Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor Reese. I just was looking at the increase. There's been a pretty good increase for the last couple of years. How does it affect our ability to cover the fires? Is there any concerns or with the fire department?
The increase is actually on firefighter hours, so they actually had more incidents last year, and so far this year. So we've had no issues covering out there for them.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schultes,
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
That motion carries 8 ayes, 0 nays.
All right. The next item is the consideration of sale of THC products, Coburn's Incorporated Cashwise Liquor. Judy.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the next item before you is to consider approval of the sale of THC product license for Coburn's Cashwise Liquor. It's staff's recommendation to approve.
Mike?
I had thought we had agreed in the council to put a moratorium on any licensing, and until the laws were designated and we knew exactly where we were, I thought we were basically holding up on any approval of like this.
This is THC. Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember O'Brien, thank you for the question. So the moratorium that the city acted on and passed was on cannabis. THC is excluded from that moratorium. What the city did also earlier this year, what date was that? I think it was July. That's July and August council meetings updated this ordinance, a THC ordinance, with recent changes from the last legislative session. But there is not a moratorium on THC licenses that this city would be able to issue.
All right, thank you.
All right. We need a motion. Tom?
Coming off of Councilmember O'Brien, I thought we were kind of in the same boat. I thought before we approved Westside Liquors, we were gonna really start limiting the business for these THC edible ones. I thought the whole council came to kind of agreement. We're gonna kind of take a step back until the state finalized everything, got everything going. And I was kind of disappointed where the vote went last time with us approving Westside Liquor, because I was on the understanding that this council was going to take a step back and let the state handle it. And then once they got everything done from the state, then we would move further with the city. And that's still my stance tonight, where I think that we need just put the brakes on this until the state finalizes everything before we can take some action.
Robert or Kyle?
Sure, thank you. Councilmember Butterfield, we're not able to stop THC licenses coming before the city. We have an ordinance, the moratorium that the state issued in 2022 that expired in January of 23, in 2023 anyway. Maybe it was spring. Would have been a year after a city would have adopted it. Anyways, the moratorium is for cannabis products only, cannabis retail sales, not for THC. I don't believe the law would allow us to not consider a THC or THC license.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, that's completely correct. There's two stages to the way this has unfolded. Stage one was in 2022. The legislature legalized edible THC products, and the city's, that's right. The city's response was to regulate them through a licensing ordinance, which you established. In 2023, the legislature legalized adult use cannabis, but authorized cities to impose moratoriums on cannabis-related businesses until January of 2025. And the city exercised that authority and did impose the moratorium, but that moratorium specifically does not apply to the edible THC products. You have a licensing ordinance for those. If a business can satisfy the requirements of the licensing ordinance, the city must issue the license. That's just how regulatory licensing scheme works. So staff has received an application in this case, determined that they satisfy the requirements of the licensing ordinance, and are therefore recommending approval of this application.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Further discussion? If not, go ahead and vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Schultes?
Aye.
That motion carries 6 ayes, 2 nays. The nay votes were cast by Councilmember Butterfield and O'Brien.
All right. That's the end of our agenda. Is there anything else that needs to come before the council?
I have something.
Mike?
Community pride. Just want to thank Fire Chief and his sidekick. I had a call about some real concerns about will the fire trucks be able to get to our houses, to our residents because of construction. And I had 3 calls actually, and I called the fire chief and they immediately went out and looked it over, and the plan, I think the plan they already had in place. And I was able to call after he called me back and said, we got it all set up, it's good. We'll be able to do this, we'll be able to get in and take care of this. I was able to call the residents, and they were very happy that this was done so quickly. So thank you.
Bob?
This is kind of a two-part one, but it'll all tie in together for the community pride. We had a very concerned attorney here in town that read the article in the Tribune from Sweet Living, and it hit him very hard. He actually shot our city attorney an email. When he got done, he called me to discuss it. He said he would like to be in on the city's defense if a lawsuit is brought forward. So I just want the rest of the council to know that we do have some local attorneys that want to back the city on this if anything does move forward.
All right. Unless there's something else.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.
NG.